I was very lucky because people liked my accent in this country. So people assumed that I was smarter than I was because I sounded like this.
Welcome to Postgrads. Two Columbia J School alumni walk into a bar Flora. What do you think the punchline should be?
That they are probably competing for the same byline.
Yeah, you're speaking from your experience?
I'm actually not, but that's why I joined the audio world, because I think it's less competitive
Of course.
the print world.
Yes. Today we have Flora Warshaw, my friends and classmates from our audio class, who's now an audio producer at Marketplace by 8 p.m. Thank you for joining us today, Flora.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, Flora, the first question is, can you please tell us about where you grew up, where you went to college, and what made you eventually come to US to pursue journalism?
I grew up in London, and I went to university at St Andrews, which is a tiny town in the middle of nowhere, Scotland, which is kind of known predominantly because it's very famous for its golf and the fact the royal family went there. But I did that for 4 years. I majored in history and international relations, and to be honest, that was going to be the career I was going to go down. I was potentially going to do like a history PhD, really go down the academic route. And then I think what drew me to journalism was through my discoveries in history. I was like, this is so interesting. I want more people to know about this. But in history, things tend to stay in just like the academic sphere. Like it's just academics telling other academics. Mm-hmm. And I found journalism as a nice bridge between that kind of world and bringing it to a wider audience. Yeah. So I did my research. There are quite a few good schools in London for journalism, but I had a lot of friends in the US because St Andrews is very international, but like very American. So I had a lot of friends that were here anyway. Columbia is obviously one of the best schools for journalism, so I thought I would give it a go.
And you kind of see what American is.
Yeah, I'm lucky. Like I grew up in central London. Like it's kind of similar, so nothing really came as too much of a shock.
Yeah.
But I've been very lucky in that like I already had a bit of a base here, so like I already knew a lot of people before I moved out here.
So that wasn't really difficult for you to transition from.
No, I'd say not.
Okay, and what happened then? Did you like reporting?
Yeah. So I think I came to Columbia with the vision that I was gonna be like a go-getter journalist. I had never done journalism before, so my prior experience was I did a lot of college radio and I produced my own podcast like in my bedroom in college, and I like did a bit for the student newspaper, but predominantly like the opinion pages. Like I never went out and interviewed someone on the street. So reporting boot camp was like my first time doing real reporting. And I thought I was going to love it. Like, I'm an extrovert. I like talking to people. I like meeting new people. And I didn't enjoy it. I think a lot of people get a thrill from being sent out on the street and kind of following the story and finding a scoop and kind of talking to strangers. Yeah. And I just don't think it aligned with exactly what I was looking for. And I think that's what is important about going to graduate school. You're not necessarily going to graduate school to kind of know exactly what your path is. It's to also like figure out exactly what you want. So that's definitely why I've like entered the more like production sphere and audio, because like Columbia showed me what I liked and what I didn't like, and what I did not like was like print reporting journalism.
Yeah, and what do you think is the best way to approach people that you need for the article?
I was very lucky because people liked my accent in this country. So people like assumed that I was smarter than I was because I sounded like this, which I think sometimes worked in my favor. I don't know if I can say that. But like I'm an extrovert. I'm quite good at going up to people and just like striking up conversation. Yeah. But no, I would really have to like psych myself up to do it. I didn't enjoy being told like tomorrow I need you to go out for 3 hours and interview people. Like I would do it and I would get good tape and I would get good interviews in the end, but I wouldn't say I loved the thrill.
Yeah, I remember there was probably first or second audio story we have done for our class. You went to a marketplace in the morning, right?
Yeah, I did a story. I wanted to do an economic story about Valentine's Day. So yeah, I think I like set my alarm for 4 a.m. I went to the flower market, and then I think I went back to bed. I remember telling our professor like, I'm just going to go home and like do some admin before I come in. I fully think I went back to bed for an hour, and then I went to Columbia, and yeah, you've done the day stories. They're quite manic, but it's fun in the end.
So are you grateful that the J School made you realize that you actually don't like reporting?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it was at first like a bit of a bitter pill to swallow because it was what at least I had envisioned for my time. Maybe because I found reporting a bit too rigid. You can't have your own voice in it, and everything has to be fair enough. Like at least trying to be completely objective.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the same goes for a reporting audio story. But that's why I like to work in things that are maybe like less news focused, and there's still exploration that you can do, and you can't necessarily like put your own voice in, but there's more creativity. Basically, I don't think for me personally, there wasn't like enough creativity in the reporting aspect, because like it has to just be like objective reporting what happened then and there.
Yeah. So where did that transition to audio come from? I think you mentioned about some pre-audio experience before J School.
Yeah, so I had already done a bit of audio in before J School. So like I knew that I enjoyed it. I just didn't know like how much I wanted to be in that world. And then to be honest, it's very much aligned with the kind of personality I have. I want a creative career, but I also kind of thrive on like scheduling and deadlines and knowing vaguely what my day is going to look like. And whilst like this industry is very up in the air, I think the audio production industry, especially when you're working on like maybe like a more long form podcast, like the same format for every single episode, you kind of know what you're going to get. So you can fall into a routine and you do vaguely know what every day is going to look like. And I think some people love the randomness of journalism. For me personally, that's just like not aligned with how I like to do my work. So for me, audio production was a good in between like stability and structure whilst also being able to pursue like my creative passions.
So what have you learned from J School audio perspective?
I mean, obviously a lot of technical skills. That's been my biggest help in kind of job interviews and stuff, is showing like exactly like I can edit down 2 hours of raw tape into half an hour of footage, half an hour of tape, sorry. So definitely the technical skills. And I think it's just like trained my ear to kind of pick up on, you know, like where should you be making those cuts? Where should the story begin and end? Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it really drilled into you the kind of A to Z of audio production. So I love it. Like that was one of my highlights. I like putting on like big headphones and just kind of disappearing for an hour and a half, and you're just like cutting stuff down. I find it like really satisfying. Whereas a lot of people find it quite boring and tedious. I love the end result. So much more than like having to cut down 1,000 words into 500, but like being told like you've got 3 hours to cut down an hour's worth of tape into 20 minutes, which might not sound like a hard task. It is, especially if it's like an hour of really good tape. And that's what I found in my current job. It's quite hard when it's like a professional podcast and like you have to cut half an hour of really good interviewing. But yeah, no, I love it. And I can like see myself improving and like building on the skills and figuring it all out.
So from your personal experience, which one do you prefer, audition or proto?
Oh my God. I don't know. In my head, they're quite similar. Like, I'm now more used to audition because that's what I've been working on for the last 6 months. I mean, it's all pretty much like making a cut and then dragging a clip and then like making sure the fades are good. So to me, there's not that much difference between the two of them.
Yeah, and what's your editing habits? So when you have a long form audio clips, what thing would you look at or check first?
I tend to get the raw transcript first. I will then read through the transcript and see just like obvious bits that need to be cut. And especially if I was part of the interview process, like I'm already making a mental note whilst I'm in the interview process of like, this is the bit that isn't necessary, or like this was a really good kind of section. So once I like go through and see the bits just reading that I want to cut, I cut those out. And then I kind of do another pass, just like really listening. And it's even small things like, they breathed too much in this section, like this word sounded a bit weird. It's like taking out the small cuts. But I feel like as time has gone on and as I've cut down more interviews, you can kind of tell like when is a good section, when is not. I think the trick for me is if it's a long bit of tape, like an hour and a half, I tend to do it in sections. I'll like look at the first half an hour and then the hour and then an hour and a half. So it's not just like an overwhelming amount of just like, I've got to now cut down an hour and a half into like 25 minutes.
Yeah. And before you came to J School, you worked as officer assistant, TA, and marketing intern. After so many different job roles, what's your destination?
Yeah, no, I did a lot of teaching before. I mean, the marketing one was a bit rogue. That was me trying to do some print skills. So I worked for this tech startup company. I did like a bit of their advertising and marketing stuff. So I just wrote a few articles for them. But yeah, no, I did a lot of teaching. I thought I was going to be a teacher when I was 18. And to be honest, that has been the thing that has helped me the most in interviews.
Yeah.
So right now, like I work for a kids podcast, and that definitely helped my application process because I was like, I've worked with kids now for 4 years. I feel like I know the way they think and the way they respond to things. Like I would know how to work a podcast around this. And even my next role I'm going into is based out of a museum. So that's obviously very education focused. So no, I've actually found that like my teaching skills has really, really come into play when it comes to like the audio stuff that I'm doing.
Like I said, every step counts. So
Yeah, I think it's like, I'm a big believer in like pursue what you want, and like you can always mold your resume to like find the skills in every single thing you've done to like actually like prove that it's valuable to the task at
prepare
hand.
you for your next step.
Yeah.
I remember you were one of the first students to get the job offers during the second semester. What were your tricks for finding job opportunities, and how did you balance the job hunting and study life, especially at the school, with such high maintenance?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. I will say I'm very good at balancing my time. Like I really academically grinded in college. Like I'm very good at doing that kind of stuff. So I was like balancing my degree where I wrote 2 theses with also applying to Columbia at the same time.
Yeah.
But for me, how did I do the job hunt? I'm a big fan of spreadsheets. So for me, every week I was trawling through like the same websites, like especially when you knew vaguely what you want to do, which for me was just straight audio. I didn't apply to any print or video stuff. It was just audio jobs.
Yeah.
I remember I had this huge spreadsheet that was just labeled like, let's get hired. And every single week I would add to it and just keep monitoring it. I always told myself like, I'm not going to start applying for jobs until January. Because for me, because I'd had no prior journalism experience, I was like, I don't have any clips to send, you know, these interviews. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I was also, you know, when the Bloomberg and the New York Times internships and stuff all came out in September, I was like, as much as these are eventual, like, dream jobs, I'm just going to be realistic. I have no journalism experience. I'm not going to be applying to these places. So I'd always told myself, like, I'm going to start in January. And then it was just a constant, like, I would be on the same websites, finding new stuff that popped up every week. Some week I'd be applying to 5 jobs. Some weeks I'd be applying to 10 jobs. And I did that from, like, January to March. And then if I ever got, like, a second round interview, that's when I would, like, dedicate 3 specific evenings where after my day of Columbia, I would go home, I would research every single thing about that company. I would write down mock questions that I think they could ask me. I would like really go through the interview process. Looking back now, I'm really lucky with the job I did end up with.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that it was in New York because I'd really built my life here. I was also really grateful that it was a production job because I'd applied to a lot of reporting audio jobs. But yeah, the job advice I would give is don't stress if you've not started applying before January. It's a very much like slow and steady wins the race. It's kind of a numbers game, but by that I mean just like don't be manic and apply to like 100 a week, which some people did do, but just keep it ticking over, keep the list updated, and like eventually you will land on something. Like everyone eventually always lands on their feet. It just might not be instantly come graduation in June.
If you were gonna recommend, what apps were you using for job hunting?
LinkedIn, but not necessarily job postings. I found a lot of the stuff that I was applying to because someone had like written about it in a post. So even just like I know people who are like skilled on LinkedIn and really know how to like do that system. I don't. This is just like what I've learned. A lot of people will write about jobs in like posts. So I would like type in keywords. I found a lot through that. There was some really specific audio. Like I remember like typing into Google like public radio jobs US, and there would be like websites just dedicated to constant listings of like audio jobs. I worked hard, but I'll also admit like it was a bit of luck. Like I think landing any job or internship in this industry, there has to be a bit of luck involved, because I think everyone who graduated Columbia is more than qualified enough to land something. I was just a lucky one who did get something, and I've continued to.
Right now, you're audio producer for 2 shows. One is a kids show called Million Bazillion, and another is called This Is Uncomfortable. Tell us a little bit about these 2 shows.
Yeah, so they're all in like the podcast department at Marketplace. Million Bazillion is literally a kid show about financial literacy, which is adorable. It's aimed at kind of kids age maybe 9 to 14. I've loved it because part of my job is like I have to filter through the questions that kids send me. So it's like 8-year-olds literally sending in voice notes being like, what is a debt snowball? And it's like genuinely questions that like I wouldn't even know the answer to. And even though it's a show for kids, it's actually really helpful. Like when I applied for my first credit card here, I genuinely listened to the episode on credit cards. So I can highly recommend. But I've loved it. It's like, it's really entertaining. It's really like, I think it does good stuff. And I think it's teaching a lot of kids a lot of things. But working on that show is slightly different to This Is Uncomfortable, which is aimed at a more like older millennial audience. And that show is really about kind of answering the money questions that no one really wants to talk about, which is quite an interesting concept. Like one of my favorite episodes that I listened to before I took up the job was there was an entire episode on like, is it appropriate to Venmo request my boyfriend if like he's bought me a $5 bottle of water? And like it's something I wouldn't even think about, but it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like I am in a relationship. Like, would I Venmo request my partner for dinner if like he hadn't picked up the tab? I don't know. And yeah, it's been interesting working on the 2 of them because at the same time, because they are 2 very, very different shows and I think require slightly different skill sets.
Yeah.
But it's also helped me really like understand how to do like multitasking, like separating your brain into like 2 different shows. So I've loved kind of doing them at the same time.
Yeah. I just want to add that working with children can certainly be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, they're all online. Like it's not like we're interviewing the kids.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm like grappling with like trying to interview a 9-year-old, but I just get the adorable aspect, which is like seeing their little videos and the questions that they send in.
Yeah. What questions are that you can remember right now that they send you think is really funny?
I'm trying to think of like the season that we've just done. Oh my God, I had to interview a historian about why we have $2 bills if no one uses them and people just think they're good luck, like why are they still in circulation, which is something that you wouldn't even think about. There we've done an episode on like why are there so many chain restaurants, like how does that work, and like franchising. It's just really interesting like seeing how kids' brains work, because like we used to think like that, and I think that like side of your brain just obviously switches off at a certain point. But like we did an entire episode answering like a kid wants to know like why is stuff in the airport so much more expensive than like any other shop, and I would never know the answer to that. And apparently it's because like they have to pay for all of the food to go through security and the staff. Like there's so much that goes into it that you just have no idea about. So it's really like sweet and kind of powerful to see like the world, especially the financial world, but like through the lens of a kid. I love it.
I feel like I would ask the same question.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's adorable. Like I think adults should listen to the show. I think it's really sweet.
It's really sweet. So what's your duty as a producer? What do you need to keep in mind while booking guests, writing scripts, and editing the episodes?
I think workflow is really important. So like remembering exactly like the A to Z of like exactly what the task is at hand and like making a list of that and that kind of thing. My biggest thing that I was taught is like there's so much emphasis on the prep documents, and that is like what questions are you going to ask, like the background research, because I think if you go into an interview or an episode recording like knowing what this episode really is about and who the guest is that you're interviewing, it makes editing so much easier because you can just like keep the central focus at hand of like what exactly was I trying to achieve with this episode.
So for example, right now I'm a producer and a host. At the same time, I help booking our guests, writing, editing script, editing the episode. But definitely, I feel like being a host is sometimes is easier than the producer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into a host as well, and it also depends like how hands-on the host wants to be, which I think can differ depending like what company you work for. But yeah, I think some people also find it more stressful because you're the one talking. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're a producer, you can slightly hide a bit more behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it differs depending on who you ask.
So, what about the future? We know that you're moving to DC soon.
Yeah, so I'm now splitting my time between New York and DC. By the time this episode releases, I think I assume I'll be working DC. So yeah, I'm going to be the assistant podcast producer it's called SpyCast. It is the world's oldest and first espionage podcast, but it's based out of the International Spy Museum in DC, which is really cool. So my workplace is literally going to be the Spy Museum.
Yeah.
I'm really excited, to be honest, because it's very historical, which is really my background. So I'm excited to kind of merge my academic life with my creative side, which I feel like I haven't been really able to do for the last year. Because a lot of the work I did, none of the work I did at Columbia was historical in nature or archive based. So yeah, I'm really excited to get started, explore a new city, and then I'll be back in New York on the weekends.
I can give you a list of the restaurants I
Nice.
like.
There we go.
So at the end of our show, we would give our guests a few minutes to get to just monologue. I want to provide you with this prompt. Please leave a message to both your past and your future. And what would you say to younger Flora? And what would you say to your future self?
I'm definitely a stressor when it comes to jobs and academia. So I think if I was to tell old Flora in the least cringy way possible that it does all work itself out, you will figure out what you're doing, which I've proven. I'm very happy in a job that I love. And I think, to be honest, I think the same advice, I don't know if I can use the same one, but I think the same advice can apply to future Flora as well. That just I've come this far and I've made it work. So what's not to say that the future won't be as good as it is now? Sorry, I feel like that was a short one, but I'm quite concise.
Really, no worries. That's Flora Warshaw, and stay tuned.